Greetings, and welcome to Gary from the Internet. I'm your host, Gary. In this video, I talk with my friend Robert Morgan about his interesting experience inviting Bob Dylan to a whole series of public performances of Bob Dylan's music. And one time, Dylan actually attended and left a mysterious note. See what you think.
Well, Robert, good to see you today. I want to thank you for coming on my show, and I'm really excited that you are telling us that you're willing to share something very special with us today. Can you tell us what that is?
Well, I shared, asked me to share it, and I must admit, Gary, I was a little bit hesitant at first because it's been, gosh, 30, 40 years that I've just had this memento, and it's a note that I received, and to tell the story of the note, I have to go back a little bit to an experience I had taking my now 39 or 40-year-old daughter to see a piece of history. I took her to Canada's Wonderland, Gary, of all places. Canada's Wonderland to see Bob Dylan.
This is the amusement park north of Toronto.
Amusement park north of Toronto. Strange venue, but it had an outdoor venue that could hold thousands upon thousands of folks. And there we were to see Bob Dylan. My daughter was 7 years old. And it turned out that I ended up knowing someone who worked backstage. He went on to become, in fact, he ran the technical space, all of the venues at Canada's Wonderland. And he told me, it was at that time in Bob Dylan's career, he was touring with G.E. Smith, and who was fantastic.
He's a guitarist, G.E. Smith.
He's a guitarist, yeah.
Is he the fellow who was on the Saturday Night Live band?
He was. He was indeed.
Yeah.
He had a long blonde ponytail, and I saw somewhere a clip of him speaking about what it was like to tour with Dylan, which I thought was going to be an expose on how hard it was, how in fact horrible it was at times. But because, and I'll get to that as to why that was the case at this point in Dylan's career. But he spoke so beautifully about a moment that he was standing outside the circle of light that was cast on Dylan, and he was there playing acoustic guitar. He would play whatever Dylan was playing. If it was electric, he'd play electric to fill it in, to back it up, to make sure everything was on course. And he was doing that for Mr. Tambourine Man. And he said he was standing just outside the circle in the shadows. And when he heard, yes, to dance beneath the diamond sky with one hand waving free, silhouetted by the sea, circled by the circus sands, he said he just broke down and wept. To be present in that moment with the man who wrote that song, and the beauty of the song, and the beauty of the moment, the beauty of the lyric. It's just very. But here was my experience. I mentioned the young man who was part of the crew at the Canada's Wonderland Amphitheater. It has a name, something. And he said in the contract, Gary, everyone on stage, when the tour bus arrived at the back of the performance space of the stage, everyone had to turn their back to the doorway or to the stairs. And while Dylan was led up on stage in a black cloak, he was put on stage, then everyone could turn. The performance happened, and at the end of the performance, they were all contracted to turn their backs while Dylan left the stage, was covered in his cape, walked directly onto his tour bus, which drove away.
And any explanation for that?
No explanation, but it was it made sense to me, Gary, because it was dreadful. He forgot the lyrics to his songs. He ignored the audience. He ignored the band. He would be playing guitar, coming to the last verse, and he would just stop. He'd stop playing and put his guitar down, and they would all look to G.E. Smith, who would find a way to end the song. So what happened to me was I'm there with my daughter, who's really excited by all the young people. There were young people, teenagers there interacting with her near us, and they were playing and they were having fun, you know. And anyway, Dylan came on, and it was dreadful. And at some point, these young people got up and left, and other people started going. And Diana, 7 years old, go, oh, where are they going? Something must be happening over there. Let's go, Dad, because there's nothing happening here. Let's go. And oh, honey, just okay. And I think I went and stood by the exit. But wait, you know. And it just, Gary, he stumbled. And for me, it was kind of not kind of. It was tragic.
I mean, isn't this just Dylan thwarting expectations again? I mean, that's what he does for a living.
Well, what I think it was a really, and this is later, and this is what I created. I created a play around this moment. I created a play not too much later, I think maybe that next summer, about, I got accepted. I just applied for the fun of it to the Toronto Fringe Festival, wrote down an idea, and they said, yeah, go ahead. You've got 10 nights. Here's your venue. Go for it. And what it was it was based on telling this story about a fallen hero. But what it was for me was, wow, this guy's really suffering. And I don't know, I've read about it, you know, and he introduced himself at one point. Ladies and gentlemen, Columbia recording artist Bob Dylan, who has been the voice of a generation in the 60s. He went through something in the 70s, drug-addled all during the 80s, to come out in 90s with a voice again. And it was an introduction taken from some music critic had written this about him. And so he took it, word in his intro. But this is years later. So, yeah, what I saw was a man suffering through. He didn't want to be there, Gary. He wasn't enjoying what he was doing, and it was horrible to see. So I ended up improvising this play because I never got a chance to rehearse it, never wrote it down. But what it was the story of a guy from South Central Saskatchewan, Bobby Jones.
I was going to say, this is the precursor to your production, The Heart of Mine tour, which came much later, didn't it?
It did, the one that you saw, and that's where the letter comes in. So this is all about the letter. And,
it's all about
this is a story about the letter.
This is a story about a letter. The letter hasn't made its appearance yet, but it's all about a letter. But keep going.
This Arlo Guthrie's Alice's Restaurant. I was learned every word to that. But what happened was, something wonderful happened was I'd been playing guitar at this, there was an event that was a weekend event for families, and they had different activities, and it was kind of a reflection time for inner reflection and to love the stars. And And anyway, because of an experience I had, Susan and I, my wife Susan and I had living in a community with we started a little farm with people who with varying labels, marginalized in their whole lives, but labeled in many different ways. But we were asked to kind of be the keynote speakers for that weekend, and there were several times we spoke and addressed things. And I had a guitar, and I played guitar, and this young 15-year-old kid came up at one point and said, "I like the way you play guitar. Can I play with you?" Well, sure. What do you want to play? Well, anything you want. What do you want to play? So I said, we played. I immediately went, this 15-year-old blew me out of the water. He was fantastic. Really nice guy, too. Well, 5 years later, somebody said, "Hey, you got to go see this guy." And so I went to some club upstairs in Toronto, and people at this club were sitting on the floor waiting for these were the followers of this band. And out comes this kid, 21 now, with a four-piece band of players. I had never seen up close rock musicians of this caliber playing together. It was jaw-dropping. And his name is Gregory Hoskins, and the Stick People is the name of the band. But it was the time of the Crash Test Dummies, and they had gained popularity, and and these guys were so much better. Mm-hmm. They were leagues above it. And he's a great songwriter, Hoskins. But so what happened was they had just spent. Somebody had thrown a lot of money at them. Bernie Finkelstein, I think, a Toronto producer, produced Coburn and other people, spent a lot of money putting them in a studio for 3 months. So they had been working together every day for 3 months. They were so tight. But that was over. And I'm not sure. But yeah, it was a fantasy. I had, during their last song, I had this little fantasy. I would love to play with them. Could I ever imagine them backing me up? Like, it was a wild fantasy. But at the end of the show, I went up to Gregory, who remembered me. And actually, he'd been following me because I had a career in theater, and he was interested in the arts, and he followed. And so we talked, and I said, "Listen, I have this idea. I'm going to do this show at the Toronto Fringe. I don't know what it's about, but would you be interested in playing it?" And he goes, "Well, we're not doing anything. It'd be great because we've been playing." And Gary, they were so tight because they'd been together. So we had one rehearsal, or two, maybe two. No, I think we only had one, but they didn't need rehearsal. I mean, here's the song I'm going to sing, here are the chords, and they just followed me. And they followed. Oh, this would be a good time to play. I have a really quite a good recording. This wasn't. This was at 4 years later at the Bathurst Street Theatre, the show you saw.
Right.
A recording of Ballad of a Thin Man.
Right.
And it's. I'll get back to that, but this is a story about the letter, right? So Hoskins and the Gregory Hoskins.
Don't forget the letter. We can pull that letter back into the story at some point. I want to pause you though to remember the moment in the performance of the Bathurst Street Theatre that you're talking about, where I got a personal shout out. You had a shout out to your lawyer who knows all the words to Desolation Row. Keep going, and we've got to close in on this letter at some point.
Okay, we'll close in on the letter. You're in excellent company, I must say, Gary, because the only other, I think I took that from something I had said to someone at some point. I said, I think one of the reasons I married my wife was because she was the only other person I knew who knew all the words to Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands.
Wow.
So having said that, and that might have become a bit of a party piece, I don't know, but I happily reoriented it to you.
Well,
Um,
that's great. I am in very good company if I'm in company with you and Susan for sure.
uh, um, so we had this extraordinary opportunity, and something. As I say, I never got to rehearse the show. My At the time, I was directed by my working partner in theater, David Craig, who acted more as literally a director directing me on the stage to tell me what was next. And I also had a box that I used as a prop, like a milk crate filled with papers and things literally from my past, but also with a map that like it had a list of what was the next song and how I was going to get there. And how I was going to get there changed. But the movement of the hour and a half piece was basically this sweet young innocent guy, not young, middle-aged at that point, young middle-aged guy, having experienced the equivalent of 15 years of intense psychotherapy in the course of this hour and a half. And he falls apart and he breaks down. And part of the breakdown was that Dylan was so bad the night that he saw him, and he was showing Dylan off to his daughter. As Bobby Jones said, the best thing about me, I'm showing my daughter the best thing about me, and you were bad. And the reason he's addressing it to Bob Dylan is because I literally invited Bob Dylan to every performance. And I did it as a motivation. That was the premise of the piece. I can't start yet, Dave, because is he here? Is he? No.
I remember
he's
that.
Not here.
Yeah.
But
that
he's
was
coming.
And,
he's coming.
But it was you were obviously sincere in telling the audience that you had invited Bob Dylan. I mean, because you actually had.
Not only I actually had, and I didn't say I invited him. I started by saying, in this version anyway, I just said he's coming.
Right. Yeah.
He's coming because I've
maybe
invited
if you
him.
just you told me you had invited him.
Yeah. I don't think I told the audience. I literally had. And,
okay.
And in that first performance, the reason it happened was not the reason it happened. The idea came to me, God, it would be great if he thought he was actually performing for Bob Dylan. Because what it was a thank you. I want to thank you, Mr. Dylan, for all the wonderful things you've done. Oh, by the way, I did have one bad experience, you fucker. And so he breaks down, right? And he expresses his rage. And in the play, it was All Along the Watchtower, a la Jimi Hendrix, but angrier. Yeah. And but what I did was I contacted Dylan's manager, and this was in the late 70s, early 80s, I guess, to say, I'm going to do this tribute show. And I know that Mr. Dylan's really busy, but I guess I spoke to him first, but then I ended up, this was in the day of fax. So I would fax him.
Right. Yeah.
And you know what? Jeffrey Rosen, Dylan's manager, got the joke. Because I said, I know Mr. Dylan's really busy, but I know that he would really enjoy this break in his busy schedule to have whatever. And so I faxed him a week before saying the show's coming up. And if you could let Mr. Dylan know, I'd very appreciate it. And I'll have a seat ready for him. And he doesn't have to worry about whatever. And so my sense was he did forward it on to Dylan. And so the night before the opening night, I faxed him again. We're all ready for you, Mr. Dillon. Thank you so much for taking the time, and I know you'll have a good time. Next night, I totally understand how you could not, why you missed the opening. Not a problem whatsoever, sir. We still have your seat waiting. So every performance, I would make excuses for it, but invite him. And I faxed everyone forward. And there was always a wink and a nudge and a joke about it, right? However, I did take it seriously. As a character, as an actor, I went out there going, I can't start till he gets here. Is he here? Like, that's what I'm doing. And so it just helped the reality of it and helped the wink, wink, nudge, nudge of it.
Right. Yeah.
So, and of course he never came. And on the last night, but the show really grew. The show was, and the band, and packed by the last. It was a very small venue, 150 people, but packed. And word got
And this
out.
was with the Stick People.
Gregory Hoskins and the Stick People. Fabulous band. Moments, unforgettable moments. I said, hey, what's Johnny doing in the basement? And of course somebody would yell out, mixing up the medicine. Ah, that's an easy one. What hangs from the head of the mule? Jewels and binoculars. Oh, yeah. And then I'd go, go ahead, ask me anything. And there'd be a silence. And sometimes because there was no answer, I actually had a friend who came, oh, you're here? Oh, hey, great to see you. Will you do me a favor? When I ask me a question. Ask me something. Say, what's, whatever. Anyway, so there was this moment where people would shout out, go ahead, ask me a question, Gary.
Oh,
it's hard to think of them. I can't either. But anyway, the point is, it was improvisational. It was really fun. There was one that stumped me. I learned something really valuable, actually. There was one that came at me, and I didn't have the answer. And I closed my eyes and literally crumpled down onto the stage, onto my knees. I put my head on the floor, and the answer came to me. And I leapt up with the answer, and the audience cheered. Cheered. I mean, what they were witnessing was just, it's as my wife, as Susan says, because we're obviously at the age where we're losing words. And so when we go to say the word that we lost, she says, oh, don't look for it. Just,
I have one. What is it Dillon will never know?
How much I suffered or the pain I rise above. And I'll never know about you.
Right. I'll never know the same about you. Your holiness or your kind of love.
Your kind of love. And it makes me feel so sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. That moment in Idiot Wind makes me feel so sorry. He's so angry. You're an idiot.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel so sorry. He holds the opposites together. The letter, Gary. Back to the letter.
Can we get on to the letter? Yes.
So this wonderful kind of experience, Dillon's invited to it every night. And the last night we're hacking out. I have never been a part of schlepping gear, but you're picking up amplifiers, heavy speakers, keyboards, guitar. I remember coming down the stairs at one point. We were up and we had to come downstairs, and at the back and out a fire escape, and Gregory Hoskins, I pass him on the stairs. He's coming down with amps. I'm going up to get something. He's going, I love this part. I love this part. I love this part. I love this part. And as I'm going up the stairs, a guy from the front of house comes up to me and hands me a piece of paper. Says, here, this is for you. I said, so I was going upstairs at the time. I open it up, I read it, and Here, yeah. Could you flash it up on the
Put it on
screen
the
there?
screen? Yeah, here I can do that right now. And here it is. There we go. The note. We're finally seeing the note.
Okay. So there it is. Bobby, thank you. And you'll notice, I think you is spelled Y-E-W.
It is.
Yeah. And the reason that is because at the course of the play, I was starting to get angry that I'd never heard Bob Dylan speak. He never talks to us. You know how Pete, this is as Bobby Jones is breaking down and
Right.
coming into his anger, and he's going, Pete Seeger talks to us. He tells us what the song is about. He tells us, you don't tell us a thing. I haven't heard you say what. Oh, sorry. No, I have. Excuse me. Ladies and gentlemen, there's one thing I've heard Bob Dylan say every time I've seen him. He walks up to the microphone and he says, "Thank you. Thank you." Sorry. "Thank you. Thank you." That was it. "Thank you." And so he spelled you. He spelled it, "thank you," reflecting that moment, I think, in the play. And then actually, we blew through the gardens and in the park in January '74. The best. Floyd Walter. Is that what you read, Floyd Walter?
I get Floyd Walter from that. I don't know how it might be something there. It might be Walton, but I think Walter is probably the better reading. Yeah.
But yeah. But so the reason that's there is because I said at one point in the play, I said, "Hey, who was there in '75 when Dylan blew through the gardens with the band? Who was there in '75 when Dylan blew through the gardens in the band?" That was the line that I used. And
75, not 74.
No, well, that's what he's pointing out.
Oh, I see. Okay.
He's pointing out, excuse me. It wasn't 75. It was 1974. I didn't mention the Inn in the Park either. He did. He said it was 74. Now, I don't know if you've seen I was going to call it travesty. The movie, was it Masked and Anonymous?
Told me it was terrible not to watch it.
Yeah. Did I say that?
Yeah.
Did I tell you not to?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Remember I was talking about, I sent you that there was an interview that was made in Toronto at the time he was making that. And you watch the interview. It's
No, that was Hearts of Fire. That was Hearts of Fire.
Sorry. Okay. Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Carry on then.
yeah,
Okay. I'm an idiot.
No, you're not at all. He has been. I don't think Masked and Anonymous was made in Toronto. No, but here's the thing about it that is germane to this note, and it is there was a moment when the director, and this might have been in the outtakes at the end, or it might have been incorporated into the movie. I can't remember, but the director was speaking to the interviewer, the camera, saying, right. Yes, there was a moment where in the movie where that young girl, a beautiful young girl, sang, "The times they are changing," right. and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. It was so moving and so beautiful, and the director said, I came up to Bob after that moment and I said, "Hey Bob, how was that for you? How was that?" And Dylan looked at him and said, "She got the lyrics wrong in the third verse," without cracking a smile. Uh-huh. And it must have bothered him, and he knew it. And this correction is completely consistent with that aspect of his personality. I think he probably has a photographic memory. I know that he remembers dates. When you read Chronicles, he remembers what was on the shelves in the room when he first walked in to the Columbia. He remembers.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the point gets made. He knows all the facts, but he still makes them up.
Well, this he didn't make up. I looked it up, and indeed, 1974. Here, we could take the, except if you want to leave it up there, that's fine.
Oh, well, I can take it down again now. I mean, I just
Thank
want
you.
to just work through it. I mean, I mean, you take this note as being
Okay.
being addressed to Bobby Jones.
Well, okay, let me explain. That's right. It was like I read. So the guy handed it to me. I read it. So I read it. I read, Bobby, thank you. Actually, Booth Garden, all the best. Floyd Walter, who's that? And at that point, somebody was trying to get past me on the stairs, and I said, "Who gave this to you?" And the guy said, "Just some guy, just some guy." And I took it and I put it in the milk crate of stuff that was a prop for the show, but it was also my papers from the past. Like there was a poem in there that I here, take the letter off for a sec. It's distracting me. We'll come back to it, or the note. And like I had written in the moment in the play. Oh, look what I found. This is all the stuff that was left after the fire. And he doesn't say anything, but it's clear that he lost his family in a fire. I mean, this poor Bobby Jones's life is tragic, right? But he's got a poem. Oh, here's a poem. Tell me if you can tell which of these lines comes from a Bob Dylan song. And he reads this poem, and it really was something I wrote in grade 9. It said, I think it was a study of haikus, if you know. Anyway, here's my poem. See which one's a line from Dylan. The frogs in the pond bellow all night long as the raccoon steals by the edge of the lake. The moon shone bright all over the place as the ghost of electricity howls in the bones of her face. Of course, they laugh, and I go, yeah, my teacher, Mrs. Roth, must have really liked it. She gave me a C+.
Oh, at least you pronounced the word Sean correctly, S-H-O-N-E. Nobody does. Every people say Sean or whatever, but you know, you said it right. That's cool.
Oh, good, good. But anyway, I tucked this letter in the note. I tucked it in with all my stuff, packed, finished packing the set out, put my stuff away. And 4 years later, I decide to remount the play at the Bathurst Street Theatre and do a run of it for 3 weeks. The Stick People were on their 3rd album, and they were between albums, had nothing to do. I had maintained a relationship with Gregory Hoskin over the years, and we.
This is 1994.
Thank you.
It's the year I met you.
Yeah. Because I phoned you to say, oh yes, I phoned up my buddy Jeff Rosen to say, hey, remember that fun thing, I'm going to do it bigger now, and I want to acquire the rights to the music. The what do they call those rights? Grand rights or something. The rights to put it into a play. And he said, okay, well, I'll run that past the powers that be, meaning Bob. And I called him back, or he called me a week later and said, I'm really sorry, but the rights won't be available to you. And he could tell how heartbroken I was. He was actually sympathetic. I'm really sorry. It just isn't possible to get the grand rights. And what the grand rights are, you have to pay a specific kind of royalty fee to put it into a play. So this is where I put my thinking cap on and went, oh, wait a minute. Let's not call it a play. Let's call it a concert, which it is, and I'm going to be talking. And I talked to someone who knew something about Canadian jurisprudence, and he said, well, but you're playing a character. And I said, yeah, so's Bob Dylan. His name's Robert Zimmerman. He's playing Bob Dylan, and look how many different characters he's had over the years. So you can't tell me that I'm doing concert as Bobby Jones and it's not valid. And he went, interesting. And that's when not Ron Lamb, your friend from the United Church, who was an insurance agent, Lamb was his last name.
Oh, no. Yeah, I remember who you're thinking about, but he was very deeply involved in Catholicism.
I thought he was a member of, I thought you knew him through the church.
I knew him well. I'm not Roman Catholic, but Tom Lamb. No. Yeah. He died of cancer shortly afterwards.
He did. He told me about you. He said, I don't know how it came up. We were talking about insurance, I guess, but as happens, we were talking about all kinds of things. And, you should talk to Gary, my friend Gary Hodder, about that. So I called you up and I told you my dilemma. My dilemma is I'm going to do, and I'm not going to call it a play. I'm going to call it a concert. I'm going to play a character. I'm going to sing Dylan songs. I'm going to talk between songs. And you went, this is your lucky day. To me, said what? Said, well, not only will I not charge you a cent, but I happen to be a bigger Dylan fan than you are.
Well, no, that's actually not what I said. No, what I said was,
okay.
No. And okay. I have your permission now to divulge a solicitor-client communication.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I'd breached.
The privilege belongs to you. You can waive it. You can talk about things that I say all the time, but I need your permission to do it.
Well, certainly you have my permission.
Okay, well, here's what I said. What I said was I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is... Yes. The good news is I will do everything I can to help you, and I will not charge you any money. And I'm really excited about what you're doing, and I'm going to try to help you. The bad news is I know nothing about this area of law. So I had to call up my buddy Lenny Glickman, who does entertainment law and this kind of thing, and pick his brain.
and you actually, yes.
Yeah, it went from there. You could tell as much of that story as you like, but I do think we need to get back to an analysis of the note.
Yes. Well, what was great was that Lenny Glickman ended up saying, "I'll represent you for free because I would love to have a day in court with Mr. Dylan." Because he said, what Lenny Glickman said, if they come after you, they will go for punitive
and triple compensatory damages and this and that. It was horrible.
They will take your house. They will take everything. You will have nothing left because it's as if they're putting you in stocks in front of the community to make an example of you. Don't do what this guy did. And he said, that's what they'll go for. And I would love to defend you. And I went, Dylan's not
no. I said I'd love to defend you. Lenny Glickman, I had to pay him money for his opinion.
You did?
Yes, I cut him a check.
Oh, Gary, I never knew that. Thank you.
Why would I tell you? I wasn't charging you anyway. What was I going to do? Send you a bill for what I paid to Lenny Glickman, less agreed discount, amount due and owing $0?
Well, listen, based on how you treat other people, Howard included, I probably would have ended up in your basement, living in your basement if they'd taken the house, right?
Liz always says,
not the
Liz always says I'm always picking up strays.
Well, I was straying, but I am back on topic now.
We're back on the topic. Can we look at the letter again? We should look at the letter again.
Well,
Oh,
how's
here.
that for a segue? So what happened was I decided to redo the play. Lenny Glickman says, go for it. You say, go for it. I rent the Rather Street
You
Theater.
left out the best part. You left out the best part where you say,
What?
so I say, okay, fine, you can do this, but Bob Dylan could come and take everything you have. And this would be the end of you, take, completely everything. And
Uh,
and and what you said was, that'd be one of the coolest things that could ever happen to me. How'd you lose your house? Bob Dylan came and took it. You thought that had panache.
It does. And I'll tell you why, to give credit where credit's due. I very seriously, after Lenny laid it out, what would happen with punitive damages, I sat down with Susan, my wife, and said, Susan, so da da da, and here's what could happen. And she looked at me and she said, what a way to go.
That was from Susan.
Yes. So I tried to transform it into something. Oh, it's definitely Susan. What a way to go.
This good. Well, it's really good you consulted your spouse on that. It's the kind of decision
Oh,
you should probably make jointly, Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So we go ahead and proceed to do the show. I get out my gear. I actually bought a new guitar for that show, and the Larrivee, Canadian handmade, beautiful guitar, and oh, that's another story. So I get out my gear. I get out the milk crate that has all my stuff in it, and I get out the funny poem, the fogs in the pond bellowing all night long, that one, and got the other material and the maps. Oh, there's this letter. Go ahead. Fire up the note.
We're back with the letter.
Come on, where's the technical crew?
Yeah, I know the technical crews sleep at the
honestly, switch. This is 4 years later. Hadn't thought a thing about it. Looked it up. Oh, now at this point we have internet. Gophers. Right. What the hell were those gopher things that used to look? Anyway, I sent some gopher off looking for Floyd Walter. Who the heck is Floyd Walter? No sign of Floyd Walter. My daughter, Diana, who's now 11 or 12, looks at the note and goes, whose writing is that? Does that look like anybody's writing? I don't know. Online, I found a note to John Lennon from Bob Dylan. By chance.
You don't have that handy, do you? We could look at that.
No, I don't. Somewhere.
You ever see that picture? Look at that. Look at he's holding his hands up. That's crazy.
I don't see the pic. I don't see it.
Oh, you don't see it? It's not coming on your screen?
It's not being displayed, no.
Oh, crazy. I don't know why that's not working. Okay, carry on.
But anyway, so a number of years later, I checked. There's an album that has a lot of Dylan's handwritten poems and or lyrics and things, a lot of handwritten stuff. And it was, yeah, that's his A. That's his T. Mm-hmm. That's his I. Mm. That's his B. Now he makes B in different ways, and sometimes he writes and sometimes he prints. Like In on the Park is INN is printed. Actually, ACT is printed. LLY is written. He does that. He writes and he does stuff with his left hand too. Does a lot of signing of autographs and notes with his left hand. This is definitely right-handed, I would say. Or it looks dominant, and it struck me. He came. Wow.
So you would interpret. Okay, so to break this down, though, I mean, the Bobby would be addressed to Bobby Jones.
Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, you're all you yourself. You're always Robert. You're never Bobby, or anything. You're Robert.
I am to a certain few who've known me since I was a baby. I'm Bobby.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, I'm privy to that. Anyway, so thank you. Actually, Blues the Gardens in the inner part, and indeed, um, I mean, who's the we gonna be in this context, other than somebody who actually did play, presumably the Gardens, Maple Leaf Gardens, right?
Right.
And
Yep.
and in fact, you were able to figure out that Dylan played Maple Leaf Gardens in January of 1974.
I was there. I saw him.
You were there, okay.
There were
And
there were two shows he did, and he had to you had to kind of bid on the tickets. They announced the tickets, and then you applied for tickets, and you either got them or you didn't. It was like a lottery.
oh,
Two shows. He did two shows.
oh, okay.
And
Now the reference to Inn on the Park, obviously the famous hotel up at was sort of Leslie and Eglinton.
yeah, exactly
Yeah.
on the corner.
So were you able to ascertain whether or not he had stayed at the Inn on the Park in January of 74?
I ascertained that about 2 months ago on again on YouTube. There was something. Oh, it was a journalist from Montreal who was trying to get an interview with him. He ended up getting an interview with him in Montreal, but he detailed or chronicled following him, I think, from Chicago. He was with the kind of entourage from Chicago to Toronto, and he detailed the first night at the Gardens. He even detailed that he met Dylan in the hall at Inn in the Park where they were staying, and Robertson was there, and he detailed meetings with Robertson and different
Robbie, you're talking about
people.
Robbie Robertson.
Robbie Robertson, yeah, and I think Gordon Lightfoot was out there, but he detailed he was staying at the Inn in the Park, hoping to meet Dylan. He met Dylan in the hall, and Dylan said, I was sick. I have some kind of flu. It wasn't a great show. Apparently, the second show was better, but more events, evening events at the Inn on the Park. So the Inn on the Park was kind of home base for his Toronto tour, the two performances at the Gardens, and he had friends there. I don't know whether Joni Mitchell. There's also a video of him at Gordon Lightfoot's house. Joni Mitchell is singing Coyote, and you see Murray McLaughlin in the background and Gordon Lightfoot, and Dylan's playing along with her, but you can tell he's kind of wowed by what he's seeing, I think, in Joni's playing and lyricism. But anyway, whether that was at the same time or not, I don't know. But I do know that it was definitely January 74, 2 nights at Inn in the Park. And this is consistent with Mr. Dylan's. Thank you. He didn't say great show. I really appreciate it. In the same way, he didn't say it to the beautiful girl who sang Times They're Changing. He said,
so this is basically, you figure it's him saying, thank you, but it was actually 74, not 75. That's
it. That's exactly
okay, so a little
what
correction.
it is.
All the best, Floyd Walter. Could you track down Floyd Walter? Is that
No such person. It's an alias, typical of, Blind Boy Grunt, all the aliases he's adopted. This one probably just came into his mind at the moment.
Okay, so this is, as far as you can figure, if it is an alias, it's one use only. It's not like, Lucky Wilbury or anything.
No, exactly. And I think it's a wink, wink. I came.
Wow, that's awesome. And well, that's incredible. And you only found out, 2 months ago? How did you find out 2 months ago he was in the Park?
No, no. Well, I knew I had it wrong, and I didn't know he stayed at the end of the park, but he's telling me here that he did. Actually, we blew through the gardens in the inn of the park because the inn of the park was kind of famous and kind of cool. And I don't know if he was bragging about it or not, but he was just filling me in on. You know what? It might have been a, hey, you're if you're going to get your if you're going to be presenting facts out there, why don't you present them all? It was the gardens and the inn of the park we stayed at. That was part of the experience for me. So when I came to Toronto, I played the gardens and stayed at the inn of the park. So
Well, let's
actually,
wind this up, Robert, with an assessment. I want your
yeah.
assessment of the percentage probability that what we're looking at right now is Bob Dylan's handwritten note signed to you, but actually it's to a fictional character, Bobby Jones, signed by Dylan using an alias. What is the percent chance you think that that's what this is out of 100?
No, it's 100. That's what
Oh,
it
okay.
is.
You've concluded.
I
All
mean,
right. Okay. All right. Well, fair enough.
well, and it isn't to me like I don't claim it as a personal treasure.
Ah!
I claim it as I'm witness to a joke.
Yes. Oh yeah, no, it looks it's
It's,
sort of a joke, but it's if it is what it is, if it's an authentic document, then it's an expression of thanks. That's very clear. With a small correction, in other words,
yeah,
which communicates a degree of participation in what you were doing, that he would hear that and say, "No, that was 74." Okay, so uh, it certainly communicates those two things.
yes, yeah,
In
yeah.
in our
And
yes.
the one thing I to just refer to the conversation we had, I think before we started recording, I just want to make really clear that I don't have it's kind of like the moment in Idiot Wind when he says people just don't know how to act when they get around me, and I've seen it happen that, oh, I have this thing from Dylan, from the great man, the no, this kind of quirky
Yeah.
quirky thing happened, and I'm grateful. I think it's funny, but the reason I haven't said anything to anybody. This is the first time I've said to anything outside my family. Is because it's I don't know. It's a nice thing, but it's no big deal. You
Yeah, no,
know?
no, it's under, well, that's the beauty of it, how very understated it is. It's a very
Yeah.
understated event. One fictional
Yeah.
character writing to another. Yeah.
That's a good way to describe. But it was lovely. I mean, it's a great being a Dylan fan. What a lovely.
Can I get you to, for those viewers who have managed to get all the way to the end of this, could you take a minute and talk about your own online videos playing music from the Bob?
Mm. Sure. I have I posted things on YouTube that were recorded 5, 10, some maybe as long as 11 years ago, because I ended up doing a show at a great venue in Toronto called Hughes Room, and with a really good band, not Gregory Hoskins and Stick People. They had disbanded by then, but really good players. And so we recorded some of that, recorded it well with good equipment, and so I posted some things online, but there's some recent stuff that I just had a feeling, Gary, that not only as a boomer was I privileged in this little slice of history, privileged slice of history, period of time, credible. Anyway, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but one of the things that was great about the time that I lived was the music. And one of the great things for me was learning my first love song. You know, my first love song. Well, my first love song was "To Do Run Run" for sure. Hearing the voice of Lala Brooks, I was in love. And but "To Do Run Run" being the yes when he walked me home. To do run run, to do run run was the expression of the ineffable. And what happened next was she's got everything she needs. She's an artist and she don't look back. She can take the dark out of the nighttime, paint the daytime black. And so there's the expression of to do run run. The ineffable is given word. So I'm going, and that's just the beginning, as we know, of this incredibly rich.
Can I make a comment that, I mean, what you're able to do from your, I guess, your home studio is very compelling, Robert. I mean, it captures the tonality of your guitar and your voice really well. I don't know, you must have bought yourself a really good mic or something, but I find that your recent stuff that you're doing in your basement and so on is a really good present. What's your YouTube handle? What's the name of your channel? Here, I'll find out. You don't know.
I'm sorry. I just I tell my friends, look up the name of the song, like the name of the song, Bob Dylan and Robert Morgan, and the three together will get you to my channel. It's probably called Robert Morgan. I got confused because I opened a channal years ago.
It's called Robert Morgan. Mine is very unimaginative as well. Mine's called Gary Hodder. But I mean, well,
there you go.
Like, well, I mean, what comes up first is actually it's not one of your basement things. It's you put it up 11 years ago, a performance at Hughes Room of Mississippi, which is I think
that comes up first.
Yeah, well, just now I typed in Robert Morgan Dylan. The first thing that came up was Bob Dylan, Mississippi, cover by Bob Morgan and Friends. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's a good cover.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah.
I think
yeah, for sure.
Sweetheart Like You. Sweetheart Like You into Watchtower was from that same evening at Hughes Room. And it was a good recording.
And it's a recording from May 24. 2011.
His birthday, that's right. That's what I did at Hughes Room. Every year, it was Bob's birthday. That we would celebrate his birthday, or I would. And Gary, I invited him.
Well, that's good. That's good. Well, I mean, you know, if you do it again, you know, he may come and you get a second note, you know?
You never know.
You know, but no, there's a ton of stuff comes up. You just put in Robert Morgan Dylan.
Yes. So thank you for mentioning that, because what I am in the process of doing now that my guitars are tuned up and ready to go, I want to sing these songs that had so much significance for me personally. I'm not speaking on behalf of the generation, but it certainly was. I mean, he hates it, but he was called the voice of the generation. He wasn't the voice of the generation, but he was certainly a touchstone for a great many people. How does he know that?
Yeah, see, I reject that. I reject that completely. He wasn't the voice of a generation.
No, that's what I'm saying. No, I reject
it. No. I see him. The preposition is wrong in there. He wasn't the voice of a generation. He was the voice at a generation. And that's his whole career has been coming at people. He's not of them, he's not a joiner.
Not even for them. Yeah.
He doesn't, he was people always trying to get him to do topical songs and join their group. And there was in the interview with what's his name, Bradley, I think it was the Scorsese film, and he's talking about everybody wanted me to join stuff. And he says, and it was great how he said this, I don't think so, and no, he's not of anything. He's at. It's the wrong preposition.
That's good. That's a very good articulation, Gary, and I agree. Yeah.
There we are. Listen, let's plan to do this again, Robert. Either revisit the note or talk about something else connected with the Bob, or really just anything. But I think we better shut this down because we've rattled on now for over an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Well, thank you thank you, Gary. It was a delight to go down those
memory
roads.
Yeah.
Fond memories, fond times, and just a delight to share that with you. And
I'll stop the recording and we can wind it up a second time offline. But thanks for coming on my show.
You walk into the room with your pencil in your hand. You see somebody naked and you say, who is that man? You try so hard, but you don't understand just what you will say when you get home. But there's something that's happening here, but you don't know what it is. Do you, Mr. Jones? Where it is,
and somebody points to you and says,
it's his, and you say, what's mine?
Oh, somebody else said, well, what is?
And you say, oh my God, am I here all alone? Something really happening here, but you don't know what it is. Do you, Mr. Jones?
expect